Coming up today, President Park Geunhye nominates Justice Minister Hwang as her new Prime Minister. 2015 is expected to be a much better year for Korea's biggest companies, with a local research firm projecting their combined operating profits to jump almost 30%. Plus, the Jeju Forum for Peace and Prosperity opens on Korea's southern resort island of Jeju. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Thursday, the 21st of May. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this afternoon, Korea's presidential office announced its pick for the nation's new prime minister a couple of hours ago. The nomination goes to current Justice Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn. Our Park Geunhye starts us off.
The presidential office of Cheongwade said Hwang is the right man to lead its political reform and anti-corruption agenda. The 58-year-old former chief prosecutor retired in 2011 after 30 years in the profession. Hwang was appointed Minister of Justice in March 2013, shortly after the Park Geunhye administration took office. Over the last 2 years, political watchers say he has demonstrated good communication with the presidential office and implemented Park administration's policy directions. Hwang was chosen from among dozens of possible nominees. In a press conference following the announcement, the Justice Minister said he felt a deep sense of responsibility.
If I am given the opportunity to serve as the Prime Minister, I will make every effort to help the nation overcome current difficulties and make a leap forward. More than anything, I will focus on revitalizing the economy and stabilizing the people's livelihoods in order to rehabilitate the country.
The nation's number 2 post has been empty for nearly a month after former Prime Minister Lee Won-gu resigned over allegations that he and other high-profile politicians accepted bribes from now-deceased businessman Song Wan-jung. As for next steps, the government will submit a confirmation hearing request to the National Assembly, which will then set a date to examine Hwang's fitness for the position. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye has expressed regret over North Korea's sudden cancellation of UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon's visit to the two Koreas jointly run Kaesong Industrial Complex. According to the presidential office of Cheongwade, during her meeting with Ban at her office on Wednesday, President Park said she had hoped the UN chief's visit to the complex would have provided a breakthrough for the current situation and improve inter-Korean ties. She, however, added that although Kaesong is facing a difficult situation after Pyongyang unilaterally demanded a pay raise for its workers, the South Korean government will maintain its principle of resolving the issue only through consultation between the two sides. In response, the UN chief, while calling the North's move to suddenly reverse its stance deeply regrettable, said he will push for the trip again when an appropriate time comes in the future. Now, adding insult to injury, North Korea claimed to have the ability to miniaturize nuclear weapons on Wednesday. The hostility is nothing new. But what's really motivating the reclusive regime? Han Dan has more.
Some experts say Pan's recent warning on North Korea's attempts to develop missiles may be behind Pyongyang's recent decisions. Others say the regime is trying to cover up reports speculating its submarine-launched ballistic missile is a fake. But most experts agree on one thing.
North Korea's political situation is very unstable. It would have been quite burdensome for the North to allow the visit of a high-profile figure like Ban Ki-moon at the moment. On top of its internal insecurity, Pyongyang is facing more pressure from China, which I think is forcing it to step up its hostility to show the world that it can stand alone.
Experts also say North Korea's renewed nuclear threat is just another bluff.
North Korea does not have the capability to miniaturize nuclear weapons yet. It is a technique that's almost impossible to attain after just 3 rounds of nuclear tests. I think they're getting closer to that stage, but not quite yet.
Pundits expect Kim Jong-un's bizarre diplomacy and rhetorical threats to continue as the regime's political instability isn't improving. Handaeun, Arirang News.
And as a follow-up to that report, the US government says it does not believe North Korea has the capacity to build nuclear weapons small enough to sit atop ballistic missiles, refuting those claims made by Pyongyang. A spokesman for the White House's National Security Council, Patrick Ventrell, told Seoul-based Yonhap news agency on Wednesday that Washington does not believe North Korea has reached that capacity yet. It echoes the assessment from Seoul's defense ministry that said the North was not capable of miniaturizing nuclear warheads and warned that Pyongyang should immediately halt all provocations that breach UN Security Council resolutions. This all came after a statement on Wednesday by Pyongyang's National Defense Commission that said it had hit this milestone long ago and warned the world not to challenge its, quote, righteous efforts to fortify its defense capabilities. The US government has once again made clear that Washington and Seoul have not held any formal discussions on the potential deployment of an American missile defense system known as THAAD to South Korea. At a regular press briefing on Wednesday, acting spokesperson for the US State Department, Marie Harf, emphasized that Washington's position has not changed, adding that Secretary of State John Kerry was casually referring to internal conversations in the US government. This all started during a trip to Seoul earlier this week when Kerry, without clarifying whom he meant by we, said increasing threats from North Korea are why we are talking about deploying THAAD to South Korea. The matter is causing quite a stir in Northeast Asia as China and Russia strongly oppose the move, saying it threatens regional security. The United States is mulling over whether to impose fresh sanctions on North Korea following its recent claims of test firing that submarine-launched ballistic missile and its claims about miniaturizing nuclear warheads. U.S. Senator Cory Gardner, who is chairman of the Subcommittee on East Asia, the Pacific and International Cybersecurity Policy, proposed a resolution this week that calls for additional sanctions against Pyongyang, including targeting its financial assets around the world and redesignating the regime as a state sponsor of terrorism. Now, North Korea was removed by from the U.S. State Department's terrorism sponsor list in 2008 by former President George W. Bush in an attempt to make progress in denuclearization talks. The resolution also urges the U.S. to refrain from reopening nuclear negotiations with North Korea unless there are strict preconditions, including the regime bringing a complete halt to its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. Now, the Korean War ended with an armistice, not a peace treaty, and that fact isn't really felt by most people going about their day-to-day lives here in South Korea. But for the nation's 82nd Battalion, it is the backbone of their daily life. Na Hyung-young has a story.
This is one of the most heavily guarded borders on Earth, a clear reminder of the 7-decade-long division of the peninsula. This underground tunnel, dug by North Korean troops, is one of 4 discovered in the 1970s. The two Koreas are still technically at war, which is why South Korean men still do about 2 years of mandatory military service. With North Korea claiming to have miniaturized nuclear weapons and its reportedly successful test of a submarine-launched ballistic missile, the Korean peninsula is a little more tense than usual. The South Korean military must be ready to fight at all times, which means practicing wartime scenarios.
The 82nd Tank Battalion pride themselves in being the nation's best battalion. About 300 soldiers are stationed here, and they conduct this kind of exercise twice a year to boost military readiness.
More than 30 tanks, including K-1s, recovery, and commanding tanks, have been mobilized for this drill, taking place near the 82nd's garrison. The training focuses on enhancing team cooperation, making sure soldiers in a tank understand and effectively carry out the roles of each position.
The tank gunnery training improved our firing. I'm confident that our unit, even as of now, is capable of working together to fulfill any kind of mission.
Visitors and even locals often forget they're in a potential war zone. But they should remember that with rigorous training, South Korea's military is prepared to defend the nation against any possibility. 나현경, Arirang News.
Now, President Park Geunhye has condemned Japan's bid to enlist its wartime industrial facilities as UNESCO World Heritage Sites, saying the move only creates conflict with the nations that suffered so terribly under Japanese colonial rule. The Korean leader made the remarks in a meeting with UNESCO chief Irina Bokova on Wednesday, saying it goes against the spirit of the body to acknowledge facilities where a great many Koreans were made to do forced labor as a prestigious heritage site. Bokova, on her part, promised to convey President Park's message to the UNESCO heritage panels while encouraging Seoul and Tokyo to communicate with each other to resolve the issue. Now, this is the first time that the president has directly mentioned Japan's UNESCO heritage bid, whose result will be announced during a World Heritage Committee session in Germany that is scheduled for early July. The opening ceremony of the Jeju Forum for Peace and Prosperity took place this morning on Korea's southern resort island of Jeju. More than 4,000 participants from 50 nations, including former German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder and former Japanese Prime Minister Yasuo Fukuda, are in Jeju for this event, the 10th of its kind. In a video message, UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon called for more dialogue between Korea, Japan and China, saying that trust and cooperation will allow Asia to bring about change. The forum, which is made up of over 50 sessions on topics ranging all the way from security issues to climate change, runs through Friday. Korea's biggest companies are expected to have a brighter year in 2015, following a 2014 to forget for many of them. Research based on the firm's projections shows their combined operating profits this year will be almost 30% higher than last year. Our Park Se-young reports.
After experiencing a pickup in the first quarter of the year, Korean businesses have higher expectations for their annual performance reviews. Local market researcher FN Guide says the combined sales of the 206 firms listed on Korea's 3 stock markets are expected to grow 2.47% more than their outlook set at the beginning of the year. If the projections are correct, their combined operating profits will jump by more than 28% from the previous year, and their overall net profits will surge by just over 45%. Korea's biggest tech firm, Samsung Electronics, is expected to lead the pack after reporting impressive earnings in the first 3 months of the year. Leading cosmetics maker Amore Pacific hopes to see its numbers rise by over 50% compared to last year, while Korea's largest entertainment company, CJ is forecasting the biggest jump in estimates compared to earlier this year, with over a 140% rise in operating profits. That said, not all companies will fare as well. The country's energy giants and communication service providers are projected to see a sharp rise in operating profits, but their net profits are expected to fall. Analysts say the latest estimate reflects the company's efforts to cut costs rather than boost sales. They also note that while operating profits are expected to pick up for the rest of the year, it also means comparable figures from the previous year were lower. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Now, you're in a rush and tired and you're waiting for a cab to show up, and it doesn't. But now you're in luck because it might be about to change. New smartphone application services are sprouting up everywhere, and it's making it much easier to hail a taxi here in Korea. Shin Se-min takes us for a ride.
The days of standing on the curb, desperately trying to catch a cab, are nearly gone.
With the growing list of taxi-hailing apps, customers are able to enjoy faster, more convenient rides, which companies say also come with enhanced safety benefits.
The latest app is Kakao Taxi, released by Korea's massive tech company, Daum Kakao. The app directly matches passengers with nearby drivers, skipping the call center dispatcher and reducing wait times. Once a passenger and driver connect, the app gives a brief rundown, including expected waiting time, info on the driver and the cab. The app also comes with a safety feature that allows passengers to send info on the trip and the taxi to Kakao friends. All of this at no charge. So far, the app has proved to be popular with nearly 1 million users since launching in April. But Kakao Taxi has some competition. A variety of communications and ICT businesses have rolled out their own taxi hailing services, and they appear to be catching on with drivers as well.
It's convenient to find passengers who aren't on Main Street, and I get to pick up passengers who are going in my direction.
Since they're free, these services aren't really chasing immediate profit.
They are not so much models for revenue, but they are seen as a way to build a firm customer base. The database has much higher added value than the immediate profit.
Experts say they lead to a larger pool of business opportunities, mostly by increasing the company's database of users' personal information, such as phone numbers, frequent destinations, and scope of activities. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Well, those are the stories we've been following on this Thursday afternoon here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out our website, arirang.co.kr/news. And do, if you get the chance, download our smartphone application. Just search for Arirang TV. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.